1996. What was also special in that year? Something connected with Bhaktivinoda. Right? Bhaktivinoda sent the first book on Krishna consciousness to the Western universities. And many years later, his disciples, they were scavenging around in McGill University, and they came across that original book, what was the name of it? Sri Krishna Chaitanya's Life and Precepts, I think, wasn't it? Yeah. Anyway, so, and then they stole it, being typical Hare Krishnas at that time, and they said, Prabhupada, look what we found. And he touched it to his head, and he said, oh, this is very good. This is the first book that was sent to the West on Krishna consciousness. So it's in Sanskrit and English also. So Abhay Charan was born as Abhay Charan De on September 1st, 1896 in Calcutta, India. His father was Gaur Mohan De, a cloth merchant, and his mother was Rajani. I'm reading here from Prabhupada, a little book compiled by Satswarup Goswami. So when our Gurudev, he was had many correspondences with Srila Prabhupada, right? And when Satswarup was writing this book, right, he gave about 200 letters to Satswarup to use in the compilation, and then they never came back. They disappeared, right? So luckily, we have a little thing called Letters from America, right? That's a Bhai Gurudev's compilation. It's probably in the shop. Then that was, you know what an almirah is? An almirah is like a big steel cabinet that all the Indians lock up all their valuables in, right? So they were cleaning out the almirah, and a few of these letters had slipped down the back of the shelf. So that's how we come to have those letters from America. Otherwise, all the rest disappeared. So we don't know what was in that. But Prabhupada used to write to Gurudev and Vaman Maharaj and Trivikram Maharaj quite regularly, and he would tell about his preaching program, and they would all reply. So there's a whole history that's gone missing. So that's a bit of background on this. Hey, his parents, in accordance with Bengali tradition, employed an astrologer to calculate the child's horoscope, and they were made jubilant by the auspicious reading. The astrologer made a specific prediction: when this child reached the age of 70, he would cross the ocean and become a great exponent of religion and open 108 temples. So Abhai's home, 151 Harrison Road, was in the Indian section of North Calcutta. So Calcutta was the gem of the British Empire, right? It was like the capital of British India, correct? And then confirmed. So he confirmed it, right? Abhai's father, Gomohan, belonged to the aristocratic Savana Vanik merchant community. He was related to the wealthy Mullik family, which for hundreds of years had traded in gold and salt with the British. Originally, the Mulliks had been members of the Day family, a Gotra lineage that traces back to the ancient sage Gautama. So Prabhupada, you can see from his birth history, he wasn't an ordinary Jiva. He was put into very, very high class family, right? During the Mughal period of pro-British India, a Muslim ruler had conferred the title Mullik, Lord, on a wealthy, influential branch of the Days. Then, several generations later, a daughter of the Days had married into the Mullik family, and the two families had remained close ever since. An entire block of properties on either side of Harrison Road belonged to the Lokanath Mullik, and Gaur Mohan and his family lived in the few rooms of a 3-story building within the Mullik properties. Across the street from the day's residence was a Radha Govinda temple, where for the past 150 years the Mulliks had maintained worship of the deity of Radha and Krishna. Various shops on the Mullik properties provided income for the deity and for the priests conducting the worship. Every morning before breakfast, the Mullik family members would visit the temple to see the deity of Radha Govinda. They would offer cooked rice, kachoris and vegetables on a large platter and would then distribute the prasadam to the deity's morning visitors from the neighborhood. Among the daily visitors was Abhay Charan, accompanying his mother, father, or servant. So I hope somebody has made kachoris. That's Prabhupada's favorite. You know what a kachori is? It's like a small samosa, right? So that's Prabhupada's favorite. So if you haven't made it this year, next year you can make it for Prabhupada, right? Gaur Mohan was a pure Vaishnava and he raised his son to be Krishna conscious. Since his parents had also been Vaishnavas, Gaur Mohan had never touched meat, fish, eggs, tea or coffee. His complexion was fair and his disposition reserved. At night, before locking his cloth shop, he would set a bowl of rice in the middle of the floor to satisfy the rats. I think they have a problem with rats here, right? So if the people upstairs in the kitchen are taking note, right, they can put a bowl of rice down and then the rats won't wreck everything else. So they wouldn't gnaw the cloth in their hunger. On returning home, he would read from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the main scripture of Bengali Vaishnavas, chant on his japa beads and worship the deity of Lord Krishna. He was gentle and affectionate and would never punish Abhay. Even when obliged to correct him, he would first apologize. You are my son, so now I must correct you. It is my duty. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father would chastise him, so don't mind. One little thing that I don't have any backup for, but I heard that one time Prabhupada, when he was about 4 or 5, he wanted a gun, right? Because he'd seen some cowboy movies and they have guns. So his father went and bought him a gun, right? And he had a little holster. But he was still crying, right? And he said, well, why are you crying? I bought you the gun. He says, no, I want two. So, unconfirmed Krishna Katha. A picture always remained in Prabhupada's memory of his father's devotional worship of Lord Krishna. He would recall how his father used to come home late at night from the cloth shop and faithfully perform his worship of Lord Krishna before the home altar. We would be sleeping, Prabhupada recalled, and father would be doing arti. We would hear the ding, 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 ding. We would hear the bell and wake up and see him bowing down before Krishna. Gaur Mohan wanted Vaishnav goals for his son. He wanted Abhay to become a servant of Radha and Krishna, to become a preacher of the Bhagavatam, and to learn the devotional art of playing the mridanga drum. So you mridanga wallahs, where's your boy? Yeah? He can follow in the footsteps. He's hiding in the back there. He can follow in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada and learn to play the mridanga well. You did pretty good yesterday, right? Okay, so he regularly received sadhus in his home and he would always ask them, please bless my son so that Srimati Radharani will grant him her blessings. When Abhay's mother said she wanted her son to become a British lawyer when he grew up, which meant he would have to go to London to study, one of the boy's uncles thought it was a good idea, but Gaur Mohan would not hear of it. If Abhay went to England, he might be influenced by European dress and manners. He will learn tea drinking and woman hunting. Gaur Mohan objected, I do not want his money. From the beginning of Abhay's life, Gaur Mohan introduced his plan. He hired a professional mridanga player to teach Abhay the standard rhythms for accompanying kirtan. What's the standard rhythm? Kitata, gitata, gitata, kita, kitata, 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 kita. Yeah, you know those ones? Yep, you can learn them on the line. All right? So, Rajani was skeptical. What is the purpose of teaching such a young child to play the mridanga? It is not important. But Gaur Mohan had his dream of his son, who would grow up singing bhajans, playing mridanga. and speaking on Srimad Bhagavatam. Abai's mother Rajani was 30 years old when he was born. Like her husband, she came from a long-established Gaudiya Vaishnava family. She was darker skinned than her husband, and whereas his disposition was cool, hers tended to be fiery. Abai saw his mother and father living together peacefully. No deep marital conflict or complicated dissatisfaction ever threatened home. Rajani was chaste and religious-minded, a model housewife in the traditional Vedic sense, dedicated to caring for her husband and children. Abai observed his mother's simple and touching attempts to ensure by prayers and vows that he continued to live. Like Gormohan, Rajani treated Abai as their pet child, but whereas her husband expressed his love through leniency and plans for his son's spiritual success, she expressed hers through attempts to safeguard Abai from all danger, disease, and death. At Abai's birth, she vowed to eat with her left hand until the day her son would notice and ask her why she was eating with the wrong hand. So all you guys, unless you're Muslims, right, you eat with your right hand. What's the left hand used for? Toilet activities, right? So don't be eating with your left hand, okay? One day, little Abai asked. She immediately stopped. It had been just another prescription for his survival, since she thought by the strength of her vow, he would continue to grow at least until he asked her about the vow. His mother would often take him to the Ganges and personally bathe him. When he got dysentery, she cured it with hot puris and fried eggplant with salt. Sometimes when he was ill, Abai would show his obstinacy by refusing to take any medicine. But just as he was stubborn, his mother was determined, and she would forcibly administer medicine into his mouth. When Abai had been unwilling to attend school, his father had remained lenient, while Rajani insisted, and he'd even hired a man to escort him to the school. So she was pretty heavy, right? Good mother. Through northern India, Lord Krishna is accepted by the great majority of people as the supreme form of Godhead. This version of Krishna is actually in accordance with the Vedic scriptures, especially the Bhagavad Gita, which is the mostly read Vedic literature. Naturally, therefore, Abai imbibed Krishna consciousness from his very birth. Moreover, his father was particularly religious, and in later years, Prabhupada would refer to him as a pure devotee of Krishna. Gormohan used to take his son, even before the child was old enough to walk, to a nearby temple of Radha Krishna, known as Radha Govinda Mandir. Prabhupada later recalled standing at the doorway of the Radha Govinda temple, saying prayers to Radha Govinda Murti for hours together. The deity was so beautiful with his slanted eyes. Right? So then here's a next bit, right? How we got the Ratha Yatra everywhere in the world. Abai was also enamored with the Ratha Yatra festival of Lord Jagannath, held yearly in Calcutta. The biggest Calcutta Ratha Yatra was held at the Radha Govinda Mandir with 3 separate carts bearing the deities of Jagannath, Krishna, Balaram, and Subhadra. Beginning from the Radha Govinda temple, the carts would proceed down Harrison Road for a short distance and then return. The temple managers would distribute large quantities of Lord Jagannath's prasadam to the public on this day. Ratha Yatra was held in cities all over India, but the original Ratha Yatra, attended each year by millions of pilgrims, took place 300 miles south of Calcutta at... Yes, somebody's listening. Okay. For centuries at Puri, the 3 wooden carts, 45 feet high, have been towed by the crowds along the 2-mile parade route in commemoration of one of Lord Krishna's eternal pastimes. Abai heard how Lord Chaitanya himself, 400 years before, had danced and led ecstatic chanting of Hare Krishna at the Puri Ratha Yatra festival. Abai would sometimes look at the railway timetable and ask for the fare to Puri, thinking about how he would collect the money and go there. Abai wanted to have his own cart and perform his own Ratha Yatra, and naturally he turned to his father for help. Gormohan bought him a used 3-foot-high replica of a Rath cart, and father and son together constructed supporting columns and placed a canopy on top, resembling as close as possible the ones on the big carts at Puri. Abai engaged his playmates in helping, especially his sister Bhavatarini, and he became their natural leader. Responding to his entreaties, amused mothers in the neighborhood agreed to cook special preparations so that he could distribute prasadam at his Ratha Yatra festival. Like the festival at Puri, Abai's Ratha Yatra ran for 8 consecutive days. How about that? 4-year-old kid running Ratha Yatra festival for 8 days. Was not ordinary, right? His family members gathered and the neighborhood children pulled the cart in procession, chanting and playing drums and kartals. When Abai was about 6 years old, he asked his father for a deity of his own to worship. Since infancy, he had watched his father doing puja at home and had been regularly seeing the worship of Radha Govinda and thinking, when will I be able to worship Krishna like this? Gomohan purchased a pair of small Radha Krishna deities and gave them to his son. From then on, whatever young Abai ate, he would first offer to Radha and Krishna, and imitating his father and the priest of Radha Govinda, he would offer his deities a ghee lamp and put them to rest at night. So all you guys that are having children contemplating it, this is what you should do, okay? Train your kids. When in the late 60s, Prabhupada began introducing large Ratha Yatra festivals in US cities. And when he began installing deities of Radha Krishna in his ISKCON temples, he said that he had learned all these things from his father. The only important item of Krishna consciousness that he had not learned from his father, he said, was the importance of printing and distributing transcendental literature. That he learned exclusively from his spiritual master, whom he met later in his youth. So, what? What?
Carry on.
Huh? You're poking.
No, I was yawning.
Huh?
I was yawning.
Oh, okay. I thought you were.
From last night, not from the...
All right. So when Prabhupada was in Radhakund with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta told him, he said, if you ever get money, print books, right? So Prabhupada continued that instruction throughout his life. During Abai's college years, his father arranged for his marriage, selecting Radharani Dat, the daughter of a merchant family with whom he was associated. For several years, Abai lived with his family and she with hers, so his material responsibility of supporting a family were not immediate. First, he had to finish college. So Prabhupada didn't like Radharani Dat, right? He wanted to marry another one, right? But later on, his father told him, he said, marry this one. In the future, you'll understand why. So why was what happened in the future? Prabhupada gave her an ultimatum when he was 60 plus years old. He said, and she was a tea drinker, right? So he said, it's tea or me. And she said, I'll take tea. So he left, right? During his 4th year of college, Abba began to feel reluctant about accepting his degree. He had become a sympathizer of the nationalist cause, which advocated national schools and self-government. In the class 1 year ahead of Abai was a very spiritual nationalist, Subhash Chandra Bose, who was later to become the leader of the Indian National Army, formed to overthrow the British rule of India. When Subhash Chandra Bose urged the students to support the Indian independence movement, Abai listened. He liked Bose's faith and spirituality, his enthusiasm and determination. Abai wasn't interested in political activity, but the ideal of the independence movement appealed to him. The cause of Swaraj, independence, though covert, attracted virtually all the students, and Abai among them. So Abai, he used to dress in this khadi cloth, you know, this homespun cloth, right? He would wear that. And one time, one friend said, oh, there's a sadhu coming. You should come and meet him. And then Prabhupada wasn't very interested because his father had so many sadhus coming to their house and hosting them. And a lot of them, they used to ask for ganja. They would smoke charas, right, which is ganja, and he wasn't very impressed with this. So I've seen so many sadhus, you know. He said, no, this one is different. So anyway, he went, and then he met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, the first time he saw these two young boys, he said to them, you should make your life successful by going to the Western world and preaching Krishna consciousness. So one boy took heed and did it for our benefit, and the other one didn't. So Abai was especially interested in Mohandas K. Gandhi. Gandhi always carried a Bhagavad Gita and spoke of being guided by the Gita above all other books. He was pure in his personal habits, abstaining from intoxication, meat eating, and illicit sex. He lived simply, like a sadhu, yet he seemed to have more integrity than the begging sadhus Abai had seen so many times. Abai read Gandhi's speeches and followed his activities. Maybe Gandhi, he thought, would carry spirituality into the field of action. Later on, Gandhi made some, when independence was granted, and he made some comments about Krishna and his body being different, right? Abai wrote him a letter, big letter, to chastise him, right? Correct his philosophical misinterpretation of Krishna's being non-different. His form is non-different from his soul. So then but he never got a reply, right? So anyway, Abai Wade, he called on Indian students to forsake their studies. Gandhi did this. Foreign schools, he said, instilled a slave mentality that made no one more than a puppet in the hands of the British. Still, a college degree was the basis of a life's career. Abai weighed the choices carefully, and in 1920, after completing his fourth year of college and passing his examinations, refused to accept his diploma. In this way, he registered his protest and signaled his response to Gandhi's call. After the killing at Jallianwala Bagh, where British soldiers had shot to death hundreds of unarmed Indians who had gathered for a peaceful meeting, Gandhi called for complete non-cooperation and boycotting of everything British. In refusing his degree, Abai was moving to align himself more closely with Gandhi's independence movement. Although Abai's father was disturbed, he didn't resent his son's action. He was more concerned for Abai's future than for the destiny of India's politics. He therefore arranged for good employment for Abai through a prominent friend of the family, a Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose. Dr. Bose, a distinguished surgeon and chemical industrialist, had his own establishment, Bose's laboratory in Calcutta, and he gladly accepted Abai as a department manager in his firm. So Prabhupada learned a lot about drug manufacturing, right? And later on, after he'd taken the renounced order, just before he took the renounced order, and then his family had all abandoned him, all his children had abandoned him, he used to manufacture medicine and go from shop to shop. At that time, Gurudev Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, he saw him, he said, he met him 1924 or something, yeah, very early on. No, 40-something, right? Later, much later. Anyway, he met him in a public meeting, and his Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, had this white-dressed householder come and sit on the stage with him. So Gurudev thought, who is this person? He must be very important. So then he made his vow, I will serve that person, right? And his spiritual master confirmed that he should serve Srila Prabhupada. You want to say anything?
Yes, if there's time.
Huh?
If there's time.
Yeah? Got 15 minutes?
Yeah.
I'll just keep reading till she's ready. Often throughout his life, Srila Prabhupada would feelingly recall his first meeting in 1922 with his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. At first I didn't want to meet him. I already read that bit. I didn't read it. I commented on it. No sooner, and you should preach Lord Chaitanya mission throughout the whole world. That was his instructions. Abai was dressed in white khadi cloth with that time. In India, proclaimed one to be a worshipper of Gandhi's cause for public emancipation. In the spirit of Indian nationalism, therefore, Abai inquired, who will hear your Chaitanya's message? Right? We're all slaves. We're not independent. First, we should get independence. Then people will listen to us. And then Prabhupada commented, where's the independence? Who's independent from birth, disease, old age, and death?
Thank you, Balaram. So, Prabhupada ki jai. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Vastai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschachadeshtarine Namam Vishnupadaya Radhikai Priyatmane Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Iti Namane. So we have learnt from our Guru Varga that Lord Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Balaram are called Akhanda Guru Tattva, the indivisible absolute truth, and they are called Samasti Guru. They are the origin of all bona fide gurus in the world. So all gurus are one in that respect. I think so. So then they manifest in the hearts of the pure Vaishnavas, as Vyasti Gurus. And we understand that Srila Prabhupada was one such Vyasti Guru. And the Guru is considered non-different to the Lord in the sense that Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Guru Krishna Rupahana Sastreya Pramana, that in all the revealed scriptures, Krishna himself appears as the bona fide Guru. And we're talking about bona fide in the sense of they are a pure representative of the line of what the Shastras are teaching, and pure representatives of Srila Vyasadeva. So I thought that Prabhupada, I just got some quotes this morning just quickly. Prabhupada always said, I will be present in my books. These books are the law books for the next 10,000 years, and they will be utilized as such. So much power and knowledge in these books. And Prabhupada also said that the purports of the books, specifically Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, they were like his devotional ecstasies. And many times that someone would find Prabhupada reading one of his books, and then Prabhupada would say, oh, I have heard dictation from Krishna. Krishna has actually written these books. So this morning I thought I would just, as I said, I just took a few anecdotes from here and there. And Prabhupada found many of us just loitering, wasting our lives on the street, so to speak. And then he came and informed us that, you're children of nectar. You're born from nectar. You're children of nectar. And then he gave this one story about this Brahmin called Bhagawan Das. And Bhagawan Das had some enemies. He had 10 enemies, in fact. So these enemies conspired together and thought, we want to bring his downfall. So as Bhagawan Das was walking along the street, these enemies posted themselves in 10 different places along the street. And as Bhagawan Das went past the first person, perhaps they were disguised or hiding somewhere, or perhaps he didn't know what their faces looked like. But the first person said to him, oh, wow, Bhagavan Das, you've become a ghost. And then Bhagavan thought, no, this is not possible. So then as he went walking, the second person said the same thing. Oh, what happened to you? You've become a ghost. And the third person, a fourth person, you're a ghost, you're a ghost, you're a ghost. So by the time he walked past the 10th person who said he was a ghost, then Bhagavan Das was thinking, actually, I feel like I'm living, but I must be a ghost because everyone said so. So Prabhupada gave this example, maybe specifically also when Westerners went to India, and many of the Indians thought that the Westerners were very low-born, and this was the case with many of us. But Prabhupada says, if you're thinking and you're hearing you're low-born, you're low-born, you're low-born, you're always going to think I'm low-born. But then Prabhupada said, no, he's taught us, aham brahmasmi, that I have nothing to do with my material birth, I have nothing to do with my body, but I'm a spirit soul. So Prabhupada uplifted all of us coming from a very degraded condition with this, with his mercy and with this knowledge. And then also Prabhupada has always said that our life contained, I know mine, many zeros, but then Prabhupada gave us the one to put in front of the many zeros. So you might have 6 zeros, but you put the one in front, which are worth nothing, and then you get 1 million. So you get value, you get purpose in life, and you get the divine association and realization from hearing this. So also once a great magician came to see Prabhupada in Vrindavan. So he performed quite an amazing magical show. And then he came up to Prabhupada afterwards. And Prabhupada said, oh, yes, very good. But he said, let me ask you one thing. Can you save people from birth and death? And that magician said, no, I can't. And then Prabhupada said, well, I'm a greater magician than you because I can save people from birth and death. And this is what Prabhupada's given us. He's given us the lock and key, the key to unlock the cycle of the samskara of repeated birth and death. Another time in Europe, there's another time in India when Prabhupada was walking around circumambulating the temple with his disciples. And the first time Prabhupada circumambulated, he said, oh, I can see, but you are all blind. So then the devotees sort of heard this and didn't know what he meant. So the second time, Prabhupada said this again. And the third time, I can see, but you're all blind. And then Prabhupada pointed to the lights at the back of the temple. It was daytime and the lights were still on. So Prabhupada was very observant. The devotees didn't notice it. And it was the same sometimes with a dripping tap. Prabhupada would notice it, the devotees wouldn't. But Prabhupada would never want to waste anything and use everything succinctly and wholeheartedly in Krishna's service. And another time in Europe, it was a frosty morning and the puddles had turned to ice. So remember, Prabhupada would walk with a cane. So he was surrounded by the disciples going on this morning walk. So he'd come across a puddle that was covered in ice, and then Prabhupada would get his cane and he would smash it and crack through the ice. And he did this with every puddle pretty much until the end of when they went back to the temple. So the devotees were thinking, why is Prabhupada doing this? And then later on, Prabhupada explained that Maya is like the ice. And I, Srila Prabhupada, have come to smash Maya. And we see he did this in all over the world, in people's lives and in the whole environment, the whole planet. And then Prabhupada was such a believer, or so passionate about book distribution, because this is what his spiritual master wanted. And Prabhupada would always say, when we did the marathon, overseas, he'd always say, we have to double book distribution, we have to triple book distribution. So then these books, these transcendental time bombs go into different people's house, and then at one stage they will blow up, and then people will get the Sukriti to become devotees, come to the path of bhakti. And then another time in a morning walk, there was I'll just read this transcription here. There's a bird singing, and then Prabhupada's cane goes tap, tap as he's walking along. Then Prabhupada used to ask so many questions. I remember when he went into the botanical gardens in Australia, Prabhupada would stop and say, what is this tree? What is this flower? And he'd ask the devotees so many questions like this. What is this garbage doing there? And then what is the light speed, the speed of lightning? And then Prabhupada again would keep walking, tap, tap with his cane. And then he said to the devotees, he said, I want that all should go back home, back to Godhead with me. And he said, and then tap, tap, and he said, let us go back home now. So Prabhupada had that brilliant vision, and he has that brilliant capacity to do that. I've just got maybe 5 more minutes, and then I'll finish up. Okay. And then another time to describe the attitude of materialistic demigod worshippers, because we know there are so many demigod worshippers in the world in India. So Prabhupada gave a story of a sort of devotee of Mother Kali. He went to the temple, did an appropriate puja, and then Kali appeared and they gave him the benediction. And then she said, because the prerequisite, or not the prerequisite, but yeah, maybe, the prerequisite of this puja is, Kali said, you have to offer me something. So Kali said to this worshipper, well, you offer me a goat. And the worshipper said, yes, very well, I'll do that. So then he went away, and then a long time after he came back, and Kali said to Ma Kali said to him, where's my goat? And that so-called devotee said, well, you know, goats are so expensive. I couldn't buy you a goat, right? I'm sorry about that. I don't know if he even said sorry, but he said, no, I just couldn't do it. So then she said, well, you have to offer me something. You've done this puja. So then he said, yes, I will. So then she said, well, at least offer me a pig. So then he went away for a while and he comes back, and then Kali says, well, where's my pig that you said you were going to give? Oh, pigs are too hard to find. He excused himself again. I couldn't find any pigs. I can't offer you a pig. So then Kali said, well, you have to offer me something. So at least offer me a fly. So then that so-called devotee said, look, Ma Kali, there are so many flies flying around you. Why can't you just grab one yourself? So he couldn't even offer a fly like that. So Prabhupada explains that this is like the hard-hearted, non-devotional attitude of those who worship demigods. It's just give, right? And then well, not everyone, but some have that sort of mentality. How much can I gain? But we don't, Prabhupada has never taught us this mentality. Through the example in his life, is always completely selfless. He sacrificed so much. We have no idea of the austerities he's performed, but if you do read these Prabhupada books, you can see the extent of the sacrifices Prabhupada performed for everybody. And just to, one more thing that Prabhupada said about the Bhagavad Gita. He said, you know, so many people in India especially have made interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada said this is completely wrong. And it's like a person who wants to smoke ganja. So the person doesn't want to get caught. So he takes his friend's hand and he smokes ganja with his friend's hand. Does that make sense, right? He gets his friend's hands to smoke the ganja. So then when the authorities come along, then that person who's smoked, he says to authorities, look, my hands are clean. I haven't smoked ganja. So he absolves all responsibility. So Prabhupada said that also with those people who have interpreted the Bhagavad Gita, they're also like this. And he said they should just leave Bhagavad Gita alone. You know, they should just present Bhagavad Gita as it is. If they want to preach atheism, then let them do that. If they want to preach something else, but don't use Krishna's Bhagavad Gita to interpolate or to put their own interpretation there. So that was, and we know Prabhupada gave us the Bhagavad Gita, so famous in the world because as it is. Prabhupada never changed anything. He just spoke, and he gave his purports in the line of pure devotional service. And another little quip that one reporter once asked Prabhupada, oh, can you see God? And Prabhupada said, yes, I can see God, but you're standing in the way. So there are so many humorous, Prabhupada's very, very humorous like that, but also very, very profound. Now, I don't know if I have time, but what do we normally do there? No, you do kirtan, right? Kirtan. Yeah, so, yeah. So would others like to come and glorify Srila Prabhupada in any way at all? You're very, very welcome to speak. Jai is very, very humble, as is Jai Sri. And these personalities, like these two personalities, they met. I know, for example, Jai Sri met Prabhupada when she was a child in Fiji. She cooked for Prabhupada. She served Prabhupada. So very, very glorious seva. Dayal Hari, did you also meet Prabhupada personally?
I haven't met him, but I attended his lecture.
Oh, you attended his lecture in Fiji?
I was with him with like Jagannath family, and he came and visited. So I had I was fortunate enough to have a good lesson of Prabhupada.
Aye. Yeah, beautiful.
And on top of that, my recent visit to Fiji,
Can you hear Dayal Hari?
I was fortunate enough to use bedroom, bathroom, and shower, everything that one Prabhupada has been.
Oh, that's Maha Maha, right? Beautiful, thank you. Jai Hari Bol. So merciful, right? And Dayal Hari did lots of very valuable service to the Fijian Yatra as well, as did the Punjas, of course. Anybody else like to come up and say anything in glorification of Srila Prabhupada?
Okay. 1965, Prabhupada came to Auckland, right? And he gave a lecture sitting on the big Vyasa. And then at the end he said, "So, any questions?" He used to speak with a very deep voice. "So, any questions?" And nobody said anything. So Prabhupada just stood up and walked upstairs. Gribblehurst Road, this was in Gribblehurst Road. BCs and that were traveling with him, the sannyasis and everything, and the temple president. They walked upstairs behind Prabhupada. And then when Tusta Krishna was a TP at Gribblehurst Road at that time, he came down. He said, "You know what Prabhupada said?" He said, "No questions." That means nobody heard anything, right? So I thought, okay, next class, I'll ask him a question, right? So at the end of the class, next day, at the end of the class, he said, "So, any questions?" Prabhupada, "Yes. How is it that what we see as a plant is a pure devotee?" And he said, "When you're a pure devotee, then you'll understand." Next question. So that was my total one-on-one with Prabhupada, apart from going on morning walks with him, but that was the only direct relationship. Plus also, if you've been to ISKCON, you'll see the Jagannath, Subhadra and Balaram on the altar there. I carved those and Prabhupada installed them, right? So Yasamati Nandan, who was at that time, was the TP. Tustra had gone off with Siddha Sarup in Hawaii at this time. And he said, "Prabhupada, can we install the big deities?" And Prabhupada, he wasn't that keen, So he said, "Okay, And then he said, Prabhupada, what should we do with the little deities? We've got little deities here, right? So he said, "Shall we throw them in the ocean?" And Prabhupada turned to Tusta Krishna at that time and he said, "Just see, he thinks big is spiritual, right? Big is spiritual, right? So there's no difference between the little deities and the big deities, right? So we have to understand that."
There's 5 minutes left before the kirtan, so I think that's the program. No.
We're doing kirtan now.
Yeah,
Yes,
I've got 5 minutes here.
Um,
Okay, we can stop now. That's all good. Okay, so we pray on this most auspicious appearance day of Srila Prabhupada to continue to receive his mercy and to continue to follow his instructions, his bani, and to get his mercy to try and become a lot more sincere in our path, on the path of pure bhakti. So as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, keep jai, glories of glories.
Oh, I think he was talking about one female devotee, or female reporter. She was asking Prabhupada, "Do you have a car? Do you have a chauffeur?" She was, poking fingers like we had, what's his name, Rajneesh or one of these OSHA or somebody like, he had like 100 Rolls Royces, right? So many followers in Ragas. And so he asked Prabhupada, do you have a car? And he says, oh yes, we have so many cars. In every center we have at least 6-8 cars, right? And buses, right? Right? Like in Germany, I think they said we have 26, Prabhupada said we have 26 buses, right? Meaning Volkswagen vans, he's calling those buses. And then the devotees, they would travel in these Volkswagen vans and do preaching, right? So he said, yes, we have so many. And anyway, then he says, but you're so envious that he told the reporter, you're so envious, right? What did he say then?
This country like America,
Yeah.
what's wrong if I use postcard?
Yeah. So every center with Prabhupada had so many. Even New Zealand, we had 3 cars. We were only a little center. Right. Okay, you ready for kirtan? Yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So one thing Gurudev pointed out, he said, if we're doing kirtan and you're sitting there like a dummy, right? What happens? All those people that are chanting and they're clapping their hands, all their sinful activities are going up in the sky, right? So if you're not chanting and you're not singing, all those sinful activities, they hover around and they say, who's not chanting? Okay, and then they go and land on that person, right? So take heed.
Where's that reference?
Huh?
Where's that reference?
Where's the reference? If you wanna come and my place, I've got a USB stick with about 200 of Gurudev's lectures. You want to go through the whole thing, you can find it on there. All right? But it'll take you weeks and weeks and weeks to go through, but it's there, it's on, and you can probably check it out on Pure Bhakti website. Right?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.